We are moderately sane. I'm Craig, and this is Hilary. Say hi, Hilary.
Oh, hi.
And we're going to discuss some topics of interest today.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Uh,
and you're going to start, Hilary.
Well, I'm going to start. First of all, I need to acknowledge that look yellow.
You do
I
look
think I
yellow.
actually need to get better camera for this, which means I have to maybe spend money, but you know, I have to spend money then on not just on cat food, but and you look really good,
Thank you.
which we need you to look good because, I mean, that's the whole thing. With me, they'll think like, I think she was hot at one point. So we really need you to look good. Um, hello there.
Hello.
First of all, what I want to say is this. I have worn this shirt. Now I get people will can't see it and any for the audio version, I'll describe it. But my shirt says Gen X, the least annoying generation. Now, I had worn that before. I didn't really acknowledge it. It's a shirt I made. I like it. I think it's fun. I want to be clear, though, what I am saying for anyone who may be insulted. I'm not saying Gen X is the most interesting generation or the most dynamic or influential. I am just saying we're the least annoying, and I stand by it.
What about the silent generation?
Well, I'm actually starting with boomers. That's where the beginning is. So, in fairness, I would have to say that I'm not really including silent generation because they aren't annoying. They're silent. Although that may be a little annoying
They're
because
very, yeah, if you want to like hear something and they're just sitting there, it can be very annoying.
it's annoying to have to carry the whole conversation.
Absolutely.
So I'm starting with boomers, which you have a shirt too, which
I
says,
do. Yeah, I think mine says boomers, we started this gangster shit.
yes, to finally give boomers some respect. And um, I just don't think Gen X gets a lot of credit. But you
No,
know
they
what? We're not annoying because you know what? We had a moment there with like reality bites or
don't.
like Brady Bunch nostalgia somewhere in the 90s. And then we realized no one was paying attention. And then we were just like, I guess we got to get a job or something. And so we're not annoying. Okay, that's what I have to say on that. Another thing, okay, this is a moderately sane podcast. And on previous episodes, we have gone through kind of my evolution from being a very partisan Democrat to now like lost at sea. Now like partisanship is basically making me sick. Um, but to be clear, I feel like I have multiple personalities. I am someone who I grew up in Washington, D.C., most democratic city in America. I live in New York City. I'm like whatever sort of college educated. One could even call that educated anymore. Um, you know, woman.
You graduated from NYU.
Right. Who graduated from NYU. So do I have that NPR tote bag woman in me? Yes. I have that liberal NPR tote bag woman. Big part of me is that. So I have that woman. The problem is, I have another woman inside of me who hates her. I mean, it maybe doesn't hate her, but finds her exhausting and is rolling her eyes a lot.
A
Now,
lot. Insufferable.
who finds her a little insufferable and I call the NPR tote bag woman in me, and that is certainly in me. I've gone to a lot of those rallies, especially during Trump's first term. By the way, I was always drinking a latte at those close to latte drinkers. Now I think about it, I think at most of those rallies I was drinking a latte. So I call, so I have her. I watch BritBox. I have that woman in me. I call that woman Whitney. She's tote bag Whitney. And the woman who can't stand her, who knows Whitney is just trying to prove things to friends and fit in and say the right things. And sometimes it's sort of what I believe, but I'm really trying to massage it and just get social approval from that whole other tote bag crew, and gets completely frustrated with her and is rolling her eyes. She is Wanda. So I have Whitney and Wanda. And you may hear, some of Whitney come out from time to time when I do have to do some caveats. Like Whitney, for instance, is always worried about being racist. Even when, I may say nice things like, oh my God, it's amazing that Black people, so many have succeeded with such very difficult historical past and conditions in the present. And then it'd be like, oh my God, am I racist? Am I racist? And Wanda's like, shut up, just be a normal person, Whitney. So that is basically Wanda and Whitney. So I want to introduce them because I may be referencing them, in the future. Anything to add?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The two women that reside in Hilary.
Yes. Yes. And at this point, because of my movement, I'm sorry, Wanda's winning out. And Wanda is not a monster. She shares very similar values.
Right. She's just a lot less, I don't know, maybe phony or concerned about what other people think. She's more sincere. She's kind of down to earth, much more down to earth. Practical.
And thinks things that are not in the progressive sphere that really I am aren't approved at all, because I tend to be Wanda's a little in the center. She is, moderately sane or still trying to be moderately sane. Wanda is, Whitney was always trying to be part of the liberal group and just hanging on. And even was always trying to even present herself as such and worried that I would be exiled from that. Wanda is still worries, but is less and less giving a shit.
Right.
Okay.
So there. So we've established that. And what's our next topic on the
okay
banger?
Our next topic, and this is something we've introduced before, but this is an important through line for our entire podcast, which is we're trying to reach or speak to people like us who feel very lost and not fitting in politically and a little disgusted by both sides. And since we have been more in the kind of progressive sphere socially and around us, and it's so much a part of media, let's face it, and Hollywood, there are things we've noticed that have taken place. And this is important through line for everything. One, in the last 10 years, the left has gotten more and more left, from all the way to being completely anti-capitalist and anti-law enforcement. I mean, just gone too much for me. At the same time, there are prescribed ideologies and ideas that you have to have on that left, which you really can't veer from. And we'll get to this more, but often those ideologies, they're so contradictory. They're they're more tribal based than principle based. But I want to show the chart And I want to describe the chart for any listeners because I didn't really describe the chart that's essential for foundational for where we are and what we're noticing. So on our normal chart of political spectrum, I don't know if this is going to come through, but it's going to be, you have the left, you have the center, and you have the right. Now, we've done kind of tests. Even now, I probably have views that I don't even sometimes know what all my views are. But I'm like, I kind of I'm around the center. A lot of things are socially liberal. And it doesn't, I believe in social safety net, all these things. There's certain things I don't know, maybe a little more center right. I don't know. But
Right. It's those
in
questions are
general,
really hard, like which is better, unemployment or inflation? I don't know, they both kind of suck if they're really high. Okay,
right. So centered. So that's like the normal chart. But now these days we have a new chart that
just
I have to find.
zeitgeist.
This is a new zeitgeist. So this is the key to everything. A lot of the madness we're finding and a lot of what's making me crazy
We're
and
making
really
sense of
just
we're trying to make sense of it. And this chart, this gives us a perspective that really does have a lot of explanatory value.
it really does.
And we're going to show it later on in some discussions of some current events.
Exactly. Exactly. So here is the new chart, and I will describe it since I didn't do it before.
Sure.
Here on the far left, you have left, which is good.
Right.
And it's that far on the spectrum.
Very as far to the left as you can go, and that's good. And it doesn't matter whether you're authoritarian or libertarian, but that's what's good.
That's what's good. And now all the rest is far right, MAGA, Nazi.
Nazi.
Now, there is definitely far right.
It exists.
Oh, yes.
It's a true.
Not into it.
It exists. It's ontologically real.
But I think many progressives just don't see this is happening. That how far right MAGA has encroached on this entire area, so that those of us, like a lot of my opinions that will be exposed here, it actually makes me nervous because I will be thrown into far right MAGA if I said far left.
Certainly far right MAGA based on this new fangled chart. Yeah, and many of us, and we're also speaking to other people who know that you're not racist. You don't want white supremacy. You don't want starving people in the streets. You don't want police brutality. Like
But you don't want,
but you don't want this crazy leftist stuff either, and you want to have a voice. That's who we're trying to reach, and
and we don't want these anti-racist struggle sessions. There's a lot of problems with that actually don't help understanding between races. We're trigger warning for everyone because we're going to have segments about this. We are Zionists, which means we are Jews who believe in the existence and the right of the Jewish state to exist. And Jews can have a state just like Muslims can have like 50 something states.
50 some odd states, yes.
Which is somehow not already, that automatically makes me in the viewpoint of so much of the anointed class that has such an overwhelming voice. Already, we're like MAGA for.
We're already MAGA Republicans just by being, Zionists, even though we're Zionist liberals, and even though we do criticize Israel, we don't criticize. Criticizing is like saying you should do such and such different. Like, oh, okay, maybe you could try this differently. It's not saying you should cease to exist.
Right. It's like Craig you should die.
Yes. Well, that's a horrible thing that you said. Why would you say something so
You
terrible?
can't take criticism.
Exactly.
Can you
Exactly.
not take criticism? And I must admit, I've less criticized Israel of
Yeah.
late because it's so taken care of everywhere else.
It's thoroughly taken care of all the way
Right.
up to the stuff that's not even really criticism. It's exactly what we said. No, they probably shouldn't exist. The world would be better off if they wouldn't exist. Yeah, these are not, this is the
Right.
level of discourse, unfortunately, that
It's a colonial state. Meanwhile, Jews have more of a right to Israel than we have to be sitting where we are. It's the
we're in a
only
colonized
colonial.
country, absolutely, and most of us are not willing to give up, our land, even though it was conquered by blood and fire. We're not going to give it up in America, that is, or anywhere else. But
Right.
Israel is one of the few colonized places where you can dig down and find history from your civilization from 3,000 years ago, right there. It isn't like the British came over to America and they were like digging up fish and chip shops. Mm.
The only colonization that's ever happened where the colonizers can dig up artifacts from their very own civilization.
That spoke the
And it
same
was just
language,
not even
worked the
a
same
part of,
God. Yeah,
couldn't have a part of the British mandate that was divided up.
yeah.
And that in
But we're going to get into that in
that
detail.
this is a whole, we have so much to say on that subject. And so
So
trigger warning.
we are
But
Zionists.
the good news for anyone who doesn't like that, there's so many places you could go.
There's too many places.
Right.
We recommend Candace Owens. She's great at the shoot. You'll probably love her.
On the right, on the left. Oh
She
my God, there's a
really, she's
plethora.
all over this.
Oh, you can go so many places. And uh so that's going to be kind of our Middlers on the Roof
Lives
segments.
on the Reef segment, exactly.
Because we really have really nowhere to go
Mhm.
politically. It's very
Right.
difficult, and it's very difficult to know
Yeah.
what news to believe.
Right.
It's extraordinarily difficult.
It's
Oh my
challenging.
God. And there's so much to say about that. I mean, we can go, actually, this is going to be hours. We're going to only have hours on that subject alone.
Yeah.
But let's go back and talk about, because you had a lot to say, Craig, regarding
Uh-huh.
the dynamic that is going on of what the far left is, which is
Mhm.
often used interchangeably with liberal, even
Yes.
though these words really are not apt.
Yeah.
Um, it's, I mean, for instance, as we were talking, about Israel, how many of these same people are talking about Iran, where they're, or even on the media, where there are thousands of protesters being killed. And look at pictures before the Iranian Revolution, what in 79, 9, of women, and then after. And any woman and feminist who's not saying a word, you are not liberal. Now, I'm going to be with my varying opinions, some like to the right, so you may think legitimately, some to the left, will be called not a liberal. We are more of a liberals if we stand for women and gays in Islamic extremist countries, even if
Religious
they're
rights
not
and
allowed to
religious
say.
rights, including the rights of Muslim minority religions within Muslim countries. And I think what we were saying, I mean, one of the things, I mean, it's one of the more clear points that this new leftist dogmatism is clearly not liberal because at least three reasons. It's not free speech. It's not for free speech for people you disagree with. It's not for due process for people you disagree with. It's also, in addition to in addition to not be, and these are fundamental core values. And let's also get to the economics of it. Liberalism is also based on a core of property rights and the right to your own stuff that the government can't just take from you. And that goes against the collectivist strain that's also running rampant on the left right now and is very current. These are all extraordinarily anti-liberal views. Um, so there's nothing liberal about it. This is actually very authoritarian
Mhm.
and collectivist
And
and
certainly
ultimately
not,
tribal.
yeah, it's tribal.
And tribal,
It's tribal. It's not principle
not
based. And it's
principle.
going to be, that is seen again and again and again.
Absolutely.
And I acknowledge everyone's a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite, but there's certain levels one can go to, and levels of hypocrisy there are unbearable.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's certainly not consistently liberal. And it's often never shoe on other foot tests, like
Uh,
due process for us, but not for others on the other side if you're the wrong political party. It's certainly being horrified by Trump's overreaches, which
of
you
course.
should be, never a mirror on even the Biden administration overreaches, which people are like, what are you talking about? Because no one really, reports on it, probably for what they're seeing. But I would have to say firing people, masses of people for not getting a shot, which I was very for, which really helped prevent too much
Yes.
illness, but really didn't prevent the spread, was freaking authoritarian
It
and
was
was
very
not
authoritarian.
respecting bodily right to your
I
own
agree.
body. There's just it's a
It
principleless
wasn't
fear.
it wasn't even addressed. In fact, you even had a case where I think somebody was talking about shooting in your apartment, and it was a COVID issue. And the first one was like, we don't know if we can, require this or not. Within 1 week, they'd switched their minds, and then it was, oh my God, we have a right to force this on you. In addition to that, and this is to do with public polling. This is very troubling. There were robust polls that showed that roughly, and it was more than one poll, not just Rasmussen and not just YouGov, but a number of polls consistently showed that close to half of Democrats thought that people who didn't get vaccines, that rejected the vaccine, should be put in camps. I mean, this is a level of authoritarianism that is terrifying,
But
and it's
it's a
from the left.
tribal hysteria, emotionally based tribal hysteria without reason, without ration, without taking into account what are the principles and how would I want them applied to me and therefore
Exactly.
and applied to others. Due
Sure.
process being a very important thing.
Absolutely.
And that, oh, you know what? And I hate to break it to you. I understand being disgusted by Trump, but that even applies to Trump.
Even
If
to Trump.
you actually have that principle, or the January 6 people who those who were violent got deserved sentences. Those who like our protesters can do whatever, can set fires. We should all be let out. There were
Right.
some protesters, I'm sorry, on January 6th, they shouldn't have been in the building, but they were just walking around and got like, you're all celebrating the ridiculously harsh sentences that you would be horrified if that
If
happened
they
to
were
yourself.
applied to demonstrators who supported views that you support. It's
Mhm.
and again, this is the basic test of liberalism. It is I like Hillary's way of putting it because it's a very easily understandable and accurate way to put it. It is the shoe on the other foot test. It is what Hare, R.M. Hare, who was a famous moral philosopher, said, the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes is the essence of morality. It's also the essence of liberalism. It's
Mhm.
based on not oh yes, we're for free speech because we want to have a free right to speak is not liberalism. That's just an assertion of your own power. It's agreeing with it's wanting people to speak who disagree with you vehemently. That's the only time free speech matters.
And the we're against censorship being a mantra, like
Oh my.
read banned books. And of course, I mean, and even not knowing, listen, the DeSantis thing that's concerning what is being banned, but then there are actually a couple books there that are a little bit porn, and they didn't want like third graders to read it. And if people, we also have a problem with the media that doesn't
really cover the cases accurately.
Really cover it exactly.
Yeah,
So
we had a friend actually who took delight in pulling out, I think it was like different clips from genderqueer, and not to say genderqueer should be banned, but it probably, I don't think, third graders need to see fellatio, for example.
right, definitely not, never should be banned, not appropriate for third graders. And that's a different issue. If we didn't have a media complex that was getting everyone all riled and not really reporting the full story, how often would you find people in agreement?
Yeah, exactly. Really,
and
just
there's so many problems as far as like everyone's in different universes being presented different stories, when actually if we really knew and talked and what's really going on, the overlap would be astounding. Astounding.
I would think people would say, yeah, I don't think that this should be banned, but I agree that I don't want my third grader exposed to this. That's fine.
Right. But, and I'm also in agreement. We don't want to censor history. We don't want, I'm totally in agreement. But as far as the hypocrisy point, I remember just a few short years ago, we got to get certain Dr. Seuss books off the shelves.
The worst,
the way it's presented things. We need to get from even the Biden administration, I'm sorry to say, we need to get certain things off Twitter then, because we don't like it, even when they turned out to be the truth, or they were just opinions on the policy.
Opinions that people had.
Yeah.
There were active, we discussed this briefly last time. There were active attempts to shut up, J. Bacteria and other scientists. Now, these scientists may have been wrong, they may have been right, but this is a case of the government engaging in censorship, and this is something that at least liberals generally have shunned and generally thought of as verboten.
And have been right.
Liberal position and been correct in thinking that. That's the bulwark of liberalism. So this is not liberalism. It is something that is ostensibly wearing the skin of liberalism, but it is not liberalism.
Right. And it's right, where it's, our tribe, whatever, we just want our tribe to win with whatever power it could take. And not respect the actual values and principles, which you actually have to apply to the other side.
The other side, and engage in dialogue. Persuade people. I think that, again, this notion that rational persuasion isn't enough, again, runs very contrary to the spirit of liberalism, where the whole assumption, and maybe it's an assumption of faith, is that if we actually speak with each other reasonably, we can make progress, and we don't have to use government force, authoritarian force, to make people believe what we believe.
Right, or just censor, or then not even report that the censorship is happening.
Well, yeah, it's even worse. You don't even know what's happening. So it's, how do you fight what you don't even see?
Yeah, a lot of people don't even know this is happening, or didn't know this was happening, because they weren't going to be, because they are, as much as like Fox is a right wing.
It's clearly biased
network. The another essential thing that I have seen, and that has changed me, and that is very important and central for our point of view and what we'll be talking about a lot, is that the utter unawareness that their own media's bias. They think, and too, there is a difference. Like Fox News, other news, yes, right wing bias, but you know what? We all know that it is.
Absolutely. So you're on guard against it. What's worse is thinking
it's actually more transparent.
It's much more transparent, because you can look at it with a skeptical mind and think, yeah, they have a bias. And then when I'm looking at NBC or MSNBC, I should be looking at it as a bias, but instead, so many people looking at it as, no, this is just the truth. This is New York Times is just the truth.
And even Fox people sometimes will say, well, as a Republican, they'll admit to it. And that's the difference. They I think just NPR and like often ABC News and BBC, as much as there's valuable reporting there, or that is just the truth without bias. And it is so clear to me that it's and you know what? Not just us. We are speaking, I'm using like for I want Halpern's phrase, we're speaking for millions, tens of millions of Americans. This is what we see the bias. And if you don't see it, and even when I was like a hardcore partisan,
You
I
had to.
didn't see it as much, but I kind of knew.
I can
I
tell you that. I
knew.
can tell you. I was a.
I
I mean,
knew.
my ex-girlfriend said that I wanted to like ride on ride in the procession that elected when Bill Clinton won. I was such a hardcore Bill Clinton stan. I was huge.
Well, now
Just
that makes you MAGA right
well, I
wing.
guess I'm now MAGA, but I'm putting it out for
If
this
you
purpose.
supported Obama, you may be
I
right. Obama is now MAGA right wing too,
He's
with
also
his
MAGA right
immigration
wing,
policy.
but let me finish the point. The
Yes.
point was that that I knew at the time that the media was covering that would cover him differently. And I have to admit it, I felt a little good about it, but I
Mhm.
also felt a little dirty because I
Yeah.
still understood at some level that if the ideas are good, you shouldn't have to have a bias. And as the years have gone on, that feeling has just grown in me.
Oh, because it's gotten so much worse.
Gone
I
so
mean, it was, and that's not to say always,
far.
because,
Some
Hillary Clinton got really awful coverage. I think you could say
I
legitimately.
think no, I think she got covered like a Republican.
He did, and maybe at that point, because the left and a
Mhm.
lot of what the mainstream media is part of that was started going more left, and maybe that was part of it. She wasn't really
She was
left.
too, she
She was
wasn't about that.
she
She
was
wasn't
like
right.
that
I
was
think
what she was considered like a Margaret Thatcher from people I knew.
but well, it was also a lot of the critique was her corporate
Right,
ties and the money that she was collecting. It was very much the kind of criticisms that are typically launched at Republican
right,
candidates.
right.
So I don't think she
I mean,
got
she's
covered.
been criticized. I was a supporter of hers, and
Right.
that's a valid criticism.
It was
Yeah,
exactly, but in
making
general, I
money
was
in general, but
right. But
go
it has
ahead.
got, but overall, the coverage level. I mean, it is like even if you look at the coverage and and this is pretty well documented. It's something like 93, 94% negative, for example. And this is almost all Republican presidents. Trump is getting it worse. I think Trump probably deserves worse, but close to 90% negative. He might deserve it. But again, does the other side deserve tremendous positives? They don't. I mean,
No,
they
this
really don't.
whole myth that it's like, and that was created with like we know Trump is a big liar, but
Of
the myth
course.
that was created like, but Biden is like George Washington and doesn't
Yes.
cherry great. It's just, I mean, you could say Trump is a bigger liar. He certainly is. Like Biden, you could say is a nicer man. The fact that like there wasn't lies, bull crap. I mean,
Also,
it's like this and
right.
this alternative. I'm sorry, they also lie.
They lie a lot. And by the way, just for people, and you can please Google this if you don't believe me. Part of the reason that Joe Biden lost the race way back in the day in '87 was because he was known as a liar. Go and watch Margaret Cliff talking about him. Everyone's talking about him. It's like, yeah, he's known as this very loquacious, very likable guy that lies a lot. That was the book on the man. He was not known as George Washington, the truth teller. He was the type
Right.
that would chop down
Yeah.
the cherry tree and say Trump did it.
And not to say, I mean, this is not to say, I mean, this is also a problem in conversations.
Only one
Once
of
you criticize like
oh,
someone on
Trump.
the Democratic side, oh, so you're fine with Trump? And they
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
impossible to even have discussions. It's like, no, am I saying words like you can say both? There are many things can exist at the same time. One can even be worse. You can even say, but you don't act like some mythology that this doesn't exists, even including like the debate, which was so awful. But like one of the lies, and and I feel sort of sorry for Biden in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. He's in a very bad shape. But
Yeah.
um he constantly said around that time that he was exonerated because of the confidential material, classified material he had in his home. That was, he said that over and over and over again, including the debate. This is one example that was a lie. They decide, her said, well, they even had it on tape saying, let me go get the classified material from like the basement. They actually had him like kind of dead to rights. Not that you should necessarily even be prosecuted for that, because there's a problem all around. But that is, her said, no, it's we can't, only reason we can't prosecute him is that he'll just be viewed as an elderly man with a bad memory, and no jury is going to convict him, which is why her had to say that point in his report.
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's an example of a very big lie.
Well, it's also a lie. It's a lie that also reveals another lie, not that Biden is telling, but that the media was telling, which is that he was pretty much sharp, sharp as a tack. His faculties. This is the best version of Joe Biden. As Joe Scarborough said, it's like, no, this is not the best version of Joe Biden. We all have elderly people in our lives that we love, and we can all recognize when they begin to diminish. And it is a sad thing, not to be made fun of, but it was happening and it was obvious.
It was obvious. And the extent of the damage of that, they still have not reckoned with. And they're part of they're enabling that. And the media is most at fault for that. And they still insist they're the truth people.
Yeah,
and they're still
the science believers, the truth tellers, the people with ethics.
And everyone else is a propagandist.
Everyone else is
constantly said all the time, and it's unbelievably, it's very unbearable, and it's just shocking. And the level of judgment that everyone else is a propagandist, right? And you please take a look in the mirror, because it's obvious to everyone else. And if you want to know, and this applies to like a lot of the mainstream media, and yes, a lot of Hollywood figures with their political shows, like the Golden Globes, which I'm now going to call political show.
Political shows.
Most of America sees it, sees your hypocrisy, sees your own lies, as you call everyone else a liar. It sees like you being on this over here and only talking to people yourselves over here, when most of America is over here.
The listeners, the left. We're going back to the chart. We'll be doing this.
We're going to put back to the chart. Thank you so much. With the far left, they're all talking with, a lot of the mainstream media and, Hollywood are talking to each other right here, which they just think is right and true. And no bias. And where most of America is somewhere like in the normal middle of the chart, which they now call MAGA right wing. And this is why most of America hates them and doesn't trust them. And now I am among them.
I am among them. And, also the faux courage, somebody like, Judd Apatow talking about how he's living in a fascist dictatorship. And it's like, are you going to be like thrown in a hood and put in a torture camp while your family is murdered and raped? Because that's what happened to you.
No, it's going to the after party.
Go to the after.
Not that there are problems with the Trump administration. There are, but there's currently an actual dictatorship where women are freaking raped and murdered if they don't wear a hijab.
And they're scarred, and they're scarred, and right now about 10,000 to 20,000 have been killed in the past 3 days.
No mention.
Not even a mention. Again,
liberals.
They're
human rights people.
They're cosplaying victims. That doesn't mean Trump is great. It doesn't even mean he's not. Trump is horrible. But yeah, guess what? You're not living in Nazi Germany. Quit fucking griping, and maybe show some sympathy. Maybe show some concern for people that are living under tremendous oppression, which you're not.
other than, Gaza, which is mostly the
That's the
Father
only place you
Hamas,
care about. The only place you talk.
which is like, because it's, Jews and you feel safe criticizing us, and you do not feel safe criticizing anyone else. But and
Not
the lack of discerning and the lack of seeing degrees of things.
sure
Now,
perspective.
does Trump like overstep ridiculously? Yes. Is it Hitler? No. And anyone saying so doesn't think Hitler was that bad, because it's
Yeah,
not rounding up 9 million people. And that includes like getting illegal people out of the country, which I know people I'm sympathetic to. Certainly not for the criminals, which somehow people are protecting too. You would think we could come out, if we could at least agree on that one.
It's a ground level, like,
But
okay.
that's like an immigration law and policy that's not rounding up and murdering 9 million people and creating a war which kills tens more
even
I
more.
can't even take you seriously
No,
if
it's
you're saying
minimizing.
that.
It's absolute minimization of the Holocaust. It's minimization of the tremendous suffering that's gone on around the world. The millions that were killed, the tens of millions that were killed under Stalin, the tens of millions that were killed, by Mao and other, and other Chinese leaders, and the genocides in Tibet. These are the things they don't talk about, because all eyes are, again, mainly on themselves, and because of course they're living under tremendous oppression. It's like, this is you, at the very least, they're not living under oppression, and they're, it's grotesque. It's grotesque and narcissistic display that makes me want to puke.
Oh, I know. I have wanted to be, among Hollywood and among like the creative fields. I don't expect that to, get jobs there, but especially if this ever, but in some way, with that going, I think I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't even want to sit through that. I think I may throw up, with no one mentioning Iran and the women of Iran. I actually, maybe God protected me, because I would be disgusted.
Sure.
And who makes a lot of these same points is like Bill Maher, who I tend to agree with, who, I mean, I don't know. He seems like a little smug. I don't know him personally, though. And I'm not saying personally, but I tend to agree with a lot of him. And he tends to be kind of a traditional liberal, which of course makes him, according to our the new chart, MAGA right wing,
MAGA aligned, MAGA coded.
MAGA coded.
Who else is MAGA coded? I think there's some other prominent, rather liberal woman who, I think she's a married lesbian woman with a child.
Barry Weiss.
Barry
Who's
Weiss.
now MAGA coded. Now, oh my God. And now anyone saying this, like, I read the Free Press, which actually you get different points of view on, which you very rarely get it on that site, which you rarely get. And I've made a point of watching CBS Evening News. I've watched maybe 7 so far. The way people report, they're knives out for her. And the way people are characterizing it, and you read these headlines, MAGA coded, if anyone who just popped down to earth saw that and then saw that evening news, they'd be like, what in the hell are you talking about? In fact, they may have trouble with ratings, because it being so MAGA coded, MAGA's not going to want to watch it, because it's certainly not MAGA. They'll be screaming at the screen as much as Democrats are.
That's true.
I've like watched it, and they're like, we want you. What they're trying to do is appeal to, in our chart, that 70% of people who feel alienated. And that's what's so horrible, because they're not in that far left space, which is the only place you can go. And that is a prime example.
It's a prime example, because that's
like something not fitting, like this left orthodoxy. And if you deviate from that, you are now MAGA coded.
This is no longer a spectrum. This is really a binary. And within this binary, within the construct of that we're talking about, this this sort of new progressive, zeitgeist that we're living in, where it's the people on the far left who are making these judgments, they would see her as MAGA coded, because anything that doesn't accord with their views is MAGA coded, as we
It's
say.
MAGA coded. It's
And
that
that's the
fun
only way to
line
make
that
sense of
does
it.
that job.
There's no rational way you could look at it and think, well, she's a Trump supporter. She's not. No one could ever think that. I mean, she's, pro gay rights. She's, she's she's pro-choice. She's disagrees with Trump in so many ways, profoundly, not a supporter, but because she's not towing the line completely and wants to actually try to have a news organization where you actually have, more than one side presented, that's sufficient. That's all it takes. There's
And they
no
call it propaganda, and it's a prime example of not realizing, well, no, they're the propagandists. And
absolutely.
I have to love George Clooney saying, the celebrities who probably haven't even watched it. Like, and people are all over probably Facebook, everywhere saying, Omaga, CBS, boycotted. I'm sure they've never watched it or looked at this free press. But George Clooney saying, I'm really concerned with CBS and how we're getting our information.
Awesome.
Meanwhile, in a very famous episode, he knew Biden's condition at a certain fundraiser, but only months later revealed it because of political expediency. So I guess we need to know information according to when George Clooney politically finds it expedient and correct for us to know it. But have no consciousness of that is just shocking.
Yeah.
And you know what? It really, really pisses me off. I have watched the show. Um, he did ask Trump tough questions. He was a little nicer to them because he's, but then Trump was Trump and scolding Tony too, because he actually was asking tough questions. Sure. And they are the only ones. Have you heard the media blackout, almost blackout regarding Iran?
Yes,
CBS is reporting on it. CBS is reporting on it.
CBS just reported today that anywhere between 12 and 20,000 Iranians have been slaughtered by the regime in the past 3 days.
That's horrible. And other news organizations that's just exposed and said, well, we can't verify the numbers, where they were taking all of Hamas numbers like in 2 hours, which they magically could get. It's unbelievable. It's nauseating. Those of us who see it are just disgusted. And so, CBS covering Iran is now, and Iran is somehow MAGA right coded. The women who have been tortured and oppressed is somehow now with CBS covering, the right wing network. Now, one thing I did notice was that the agenda, they did interview a few Democrats. And I think they did have they liked highlighting a couple of Democrats who were like, well, no, we're emphasizing practicality and we're going to work across the aisle. And they seem to have an agenda to promote moderate Democrats.
What does that mean?
I kind of like that. Not that you should have any agenda. I like that. That is basically center left. Now, MAGA right wing Nazi.
Absolutely. Absolutely. MAGA right wing Nazi. Jose Torres, Nazi. John Fetterman, Nazi. Kristen Sinema, Nazi. Joe Manchin, Nazi.
Oh God, there's so much for us to talk about. The Manchin to Mamdani party. I didn't even mention. Oh my God, there's a lot too. Oh my God, Mom. I don't even know if we bring up Mamdani right now. There's so much to get to.
Well, I think you have something that's very.
Just his collectivism, the war of collectivism. And meanwhile, his wife is in $600 boots. And all I have to say is I'm so glad we're now collectively sharing those $600 boots. And I hope they're a size 7.5. He's like such a hypocrite with all the Uganda wedding with private security, and they're the Marxist multimillion-dollar landowners I cannot tolerate, and I don't understand why they. And just for the record, I believe in a market economy to support. I believe in individualism, but I don't think that is in contradiction with a collectivist spirit. We're kind of chimpanzees and bonobos in our, we're like, because my personal morality is, and I have to say this because if anyone hears my true opinions, they're going to think I'm a right-wing, horrible human being, not just politically, that you're a horrible person. I horribly believe that we are all obligated to do for each other. And that includes through taxes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be through government. All of it, it probably shouldn't just be through government, like just like you not wouldn't want one corporation. And those who have more have special obligations. So I actually also have not just an individual spirit, but a collective spirit too, that are presented as some like bullshit, mutually exclusive, which is not even really what we have in this country, because we do have, maybe we want more programs to protect people, but we have that. It's not, these are not mutually exclusive things. And just, I think it's on us individually, everyone to do. It's not just waiting for the government to do. It's like you got to get.
We're not waiting for Godot. And so much of it's like what can you? I mean, I'll speak for Hillary at least on this one, because it would sound a little braggadocious, and Hillary's not the type to do. Well, she is a little bit the type, but she doesn't want to seem too obviously bragging. But she has a formerly unhoused person living with her, who's been living with her for years, and otherwise he would be in the streets, and probably not even in the streets. He'd probably be dead already.
Right. In a tiny apartment. That's my sister and I are.
A tiny apartment. This isn't like she's living in a mansion.
Yes. But you're making a mistake because you're judging somebody based upon, how they treat people and how what they do for others, where you, as we all know, you judge people based upon what they post on Facebook.
I do.
And you're making a humongous mistake.
Make a big mistake. It's it's the words that come out of your mouth and what you type on Twitter that makes moral or immoral.
Right.
Right. And it's some form of it's really a disgusting religion where if you just mouth certain platitudes, you just mouth beatitudes, somehow that gives you blessings. It is some very crude, very, very cruel religion.
Oh, it's a very cruel religion. I'm even so scared, I think, to even reveal myself, because along with that, having to adhere to very strict orthodoxies of progressive, or what's in the far left right now. If you don't, there is like being in Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. You're stoned, you are shunned, it's cult-like behavior. Now, not to say that's not cult-like on the right, and there's Trump cult.
But we recognize that. And this was unrecognized by so many.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's not okay. It's not tolerant. It's not open-minded. It's not liberal. It's not critical thinking.
It's not what a decent human being does. I mean, for them, it's very normal to say, and I've said it a lot, I might not agree with somebody's politics, but if they're kind and they're generous, you cut them some friggin' slack in life.
Right.
I hope somebody would do that for me, even if they don't agree with me completely.
Oh, I hope so too. And I have not been perfect in this regard in the past. And it's whereas otherwise being, because I've had family members that are Republicans. That's why I have Whitney and I have Wanda. That's part of it.
Sure.
Because I got exposed to different points of views of people who weren't crazy, who weren't racist, and that had different views regarding, well, what this tax policy here needs to be this, just practical things. And so this gave me the Wanda, along with the Whitney. There's been a conflict, but and that it was maybe at times have brought this out, the more independent streak, that you have to, there are many different points of views to things that we may not have the answers, but a lot of things have many different points of views that are legitimate.
And also importantly, you're not just judged by your speech or just by your flourishes. You're judged really by what you do in your life and how you treat other people. At least that's how you should be judged, I think, because that's much more important. That's more revealing of your true character. Because again, it's great. Okay, I'll be generous once once utopia comes. Utopia is never going to come, and that just means you're never going to be generous.
Right. It's like, well, the government needs to do it. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait for that and scream for that. And well, how convenient. Then you don't have to get off your ass and do anything.
Absolutely. It just becomes an excuse. And that's part of, I think, one of the layers of hypocrisy that's kind of obvious, because there's so much, especially some of these people could do to actually help people right now. And some of them are, God bless them. But again, so much is demanded of those that have tremendous assets, tremendous privileges, and you'd like to see more of it. For example, the other day we were talking, the last episode we were talking about that very revealing, NIMBY thing with, Texas sending undocumented, individuals to Martha's Vineyard. It's like, well, we don't have any room. Dudes, you're living in mansions. A. B, okay, maybe you're scared. You don't want strangers living in your mansion. You're rich as fuck. You could put them up in glam tents that would rival anything that I could afford right now. You could do things immediately to make sure these people's lives were better. And of course, they gave them freaking Fruit Loops and, thanks very much, Pancho. You changed my life. And thank you, especially because you didn't change my life.
That's why I was so fixated on the Martha's Vineyard thing. This was like the hypocrisy just in full display, that like, oh my God, I couldn't have written this better. We've talked before about Trump derangement syndrome. Now, let's be clear. It is totally appropriate to be horrified by him. And his rhetoric is just unbelievably disgusting. I get it. It's totally a normal to be horrified by some of the policies and the overreach and authoritarian actions. Sure. Absolutely. But as we tried to discuss last time, Trump derangement syndrome is allowing him to change who you are and what your values are. For instance, the Democrats were calling for Maduro to be ousted under Trump's last administration. Now they're against it. Everything's decided by Trump, even things you wanted a second ago.
Right, and just to find one of that, he was actually indicted. It was a $25 million award, a reward for his arrest under Biden. So how the hell do they have again? What explains this shit? It changes who they are. It changes who they are. That is the derangement.
That's the derangement.
That's the derangement.
Don't let Trump change your values. It's happened to me. It's like anything he's for. I mean, we have to be against, including now we have to fight for human smugglers who are not even supposed to be here to remain here. Just all.
So we also have to fight for mullahs now too, because protecting Iranian civilians, women, children from being raped and murdered. That is right wing. That's Trump. So we have to be very much against that too. Right.
So exactly. So if you find yourself aligning and sympathizing with Iranian mullahs and the Ayatollah, or narco terrorists, or for being for people who've even raped people to remain here, or as like in one of the Trump congressional speeches, because Trump says to clap for the kid with cancer, you don't do it.
Of course not. No. right.
If you find yourself in those situations, which many people are finding themselves, here's my recommendation. Here's the technique. Stop, take a breath, discern.
STD.
STD. Use the STD technique for that TDS.
Yes, prevent TDS. And with that, that's a way to keep you moderately sane. And that's what we're doing ourselves. We're trying to hang on to sanity. We are moderately sane. Again, we wish you goodbye. And that's coming from me, Craig, and Hilary as well.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you next episode.